Breaking news shortly before a week joined. Susie Wiles has been named the White House Chief of Staff. Um, the reaction on X so far is very favorable. And the best tweet so far is from someone who said she's actually not the first woman White House Chief of Staff. That would be CJ Craig. West Wing fans will get that. She's been heavily profiled this year because although she didn't have the title campaign manager, she did run the campaign. And this will be seen perhaps by everyone in the party except for Ron DeSantis, with whom she had a falling out, as very positive. And again, if you go on X right now, you'll see praise from Capitol Hill, from all sorts of people. She is, I've speculated this morning, the morning meeting this morning, Sean and I said we were almost certain she would get it. But it's incredible she's going to go right into this job because running a presidential campaign is very tiring, and being chief of staff is famously an incredible burnout job. Without disparaging the four people who served previously as Donald Trump's White House Chief of Staff, I will note that some have already said on Twitter that this is the first chief of staff he's had who he fully respects and who fully knows how to manage him. And Susie has a long relationship with him. She worked on the 16 campaign running Florida, on 20 as well. And shortly after the last election where he lost, he asked her to take over his political operation. And then when he started the campaign. And I'll just say a little bit about why Susie is so universally respected. And even Democrats, both in Florida and nationally, who know her, in my experience, they agree, is she's incredibly meticulous and well organized. She is an honest person whose word is her bond. She is not a day trader. She deals with people knowing that she's likely to have to deal with them again. And even if she's not going to have to deal with them again, that the right thing to do is treat people the right way, even if it's a one-time transaction. She's also very tough. And will this White House be chaotic? Yes. All White Houses are to some extent. And anything involving Donald Trump's going to have some chaos associated with it. But the naming of Susie Wiles, as compared to, I would say, pretty much anyone else, makes it as likely as it possibly could be that there will be order in the White House and also in the transition. Although Susie's not in charge of the transition, she'll have a major voice there. And that means all the things that need to get done in a transition in the White House have to be well managed. And, excuse me, it is said accurately that part of why being president is so hard is that the only decisions that come to the president are the ones the president has to make. And by definition, they're the ones that the people below him have not been able to make. Amongst the many jobs of chief of staff is to decide which of those decisions really need to go to the president, as opposed to forcing a decision made by cabinet secretaries or others. Susie is not afraid of Donald Trump. She has very good judgment. There's no one who comes into the chief of staff's job perfectly situated, but she has experience in politics and in government. She understands how to deal with Capitol Hill. She understands how to deal with constituencies. And she's just a relentless organizer. She understands, to-do lists and checking things off. So it doesn't mean Donald Trump will be a success. It doesn't mean that everything Susie's ever done in her whole life is perfect, but she's a very strong pick. And people will rejoice whether they had another candidate for the job or not. She's not an ideological person. She's conservative. But oftentimes you'll see when there's a chief of staff pick or a pick for a cabinet secretary, but always for chief of staff, there'll be factions. They'll say, well, she's too close to big business, or she's not populist enough, or, she's got an issue position on one thing or another that they don't like. You won't hear any of that about Susie. I don't believe. You certainly won't hear as much of it as you might. So, for instance, some people said he might pick Kevin McCarthy as chief of staff. Had he done that, there would have been a lot of detractors for various reasons, ideological and personal, etc. Susie doesn't have very many enemies. She did have a bad parting with the DeSantis family. But except for that, go read all the profiles of her, which I have, or at least a lot of them. She just hasn't made very many enemies, even playing at the very top level of politics. So that is big news. We can